following is an exclusive presentation of Ravens Productions.
What's up, Ravens fans? Welcome into a fresh edition of Ravens Unscripted, coming to you as always from the Under Armour Performance Center. And speaking of fresh, we hope you're all refreshed after the bye week. Should be a fun show here. Brought in the refreshed crew from Ravens Media. We've got Garrett Downing, Clifton Brown, and Ryan Mink. And guys, let's start as we often do with 4 downs. First down, Garrett, with some time to reflect and think about what we've seen from this team through the first 9 games of the season and what is obviously in front of them, what would you describe their identity as?
I would say the identity of this team is a good defense, and I still think that the defense is kind of the foundation of this team. Offensively, they're up and down, and we've seen that they've been really good at points this year, but then they've also had games where they've gone a little bit dormant. I look at this team, and I think that they are in a position that many teams are in the NFL, which is they're right around that 500 mark. They're obviously 4-5 right now. In the NFL, you've got a whole bunch of teams. You got a couple of teams that are at the top of the list. Then you've got a whole bunch of teams in the middle, and that's where the Ravens are right now. I still think that they can make a run and compete for a playoff spot, but they're in that mix with the Dolphins and the Titans and the Bengals is sort of right around that 500 mark, and you're kind of fighting for that last wild card spot. That's where they are. That's where they have been. And in order for them to get to that postseason, they need to get hot starting immediately this Sunday.
I think this is a team that does a lot of things well. I mean, you know, they've been among the league leaders in defense in terms of yards and points. The sacks, they were #1 for a stretch of the season. On offense, they were in the top 10 for much of this year. I mean, they're doing a lot of things right, but they're a team right now that unfortunately, I think their identity is that they're not closing out games. They're not winning games. They're not making enough critical plays in critical junctures to get them over the hump. You saw that in losses to the Saints, you know, when they lose a late lead in that game. You saw it against the Steelers. I think they were in that game. They just were a few plays short in the red zone of really winning that game.
Browns.
So the Browns, exactly, a drop pass in the back of the end zone. So the difference between those middle-of-the-pack teams that you're talking about and the upper-level teams is they make those plays in critical junctures. They don't shoot themselves in the foot, and that gets them over the hump.
I think it's their defense. I think it has to be their defense if they're going to make a playoff run. I believe that their defense is better than it's shown the last 2 or 3 games. That first 6 games of the season, when the Ravens were playing top-flight defense, I think that they're capable of doing that again. Now, it's going to be tougher because the teams they're playing are better, but I think the Ravens have a solid defense. I think that's what they have to hang their hat on, and if it doesn't happen, regardless of what happens on the other side, they're not going to reach their goal.
And based off of history, I think everyone around here is comfortable with defense and Ravens being the identity. Second down here, big news to come out of the bye week was that Joe Flacco suffered what seems to be a pretty significant injury in that Steelers game. His status, Ryan, for the Bengals game, uncertain to this point.
Yep.
If he were to be out, who would you rather have under center, Lamar Jackson or RG3?
I'm going with Lamar. I think that if it were early in the season, let's say Joe suffered this injury in week 2 or week 3, at that point, Lamar was still really green. He hadn't seen the field that much. But now, at the midway point or beyond of the season, I think Lamar's shown us enough on the field in his limited snaps that he will inject some big play ability and just a spark in this offense. And I think that he's had time to progress also as a thrower, which if he's going to start, he's going to need to do more of that as the Ravens quarterback. So I like his potential to get this offense rolling more than I do RG3's.
Yeah, I like the way the running game responds when Lamar's in there. Not just him running, but the fact that he draws 1 or 2 defenders when he moves, which opens things up for the running backs.
And that's probably been the Ravens' biggest problem, is the running game has been the inconsistency with this offense.
Yeah, you talk about RG3. I mean, it's great to have him as an insurance policy, but having not played at all this season, you're putting him in a tough spot.
That has to be a concern. Garrett, the tonnage of what would be on Lamar's shoulders if he had to start this game is what in comparison to what he's had to do through the first 9?
Oh, it's huge. I mean, it's vastly different.
And how concerning would that be?
The first 9 games, you come in, you get 4, 5, 6 plays a game. Now it's basically, hey, by the way, you need to win this game in order to really have your playoff hopes alive.
That's
first start against
the Bengals. There's the literal of having to do a lot more, and then the figurative of your season hangs in the balance of a guy who's 21 years old.
It's massive, but I'll be honest, I don't think Lamar really cares about that. I don't think that he's going to go into that game saying, oh my gosh, there's all this pressure on me, the weight of the season is on me. I think he's a dude that just goes out there and plays ball and isn't going to be really focused on what does this game mean in terms of the big picture. This is my first start. He doesn't care. This is a Heisman Trophy winner that's played in the biggest stage. Everyone's been talking about him for the past 3 years. Which is, I think, a really good thing about Lamar. He's not going to worry about what all of us are saying. He's just going to go out there, if it is him, and play ball.
Look, Lamar, if he starts, there's going to be some hiccups along the way. But it's not like this Ravens offense has been the model of consistency so far this year. I mean, Lamar's going to lead you on some exciting drives when he's going to make some runs. He's going to make some throws on the move. But he's also going to make some mistakes if he has to start. That's because he's a rookie. It's going to happen. You have to hope that he has enough good drives. I mean, what do you need? 24 points, mid-20s? So
let's get to that.
He has to have 2-3 good drives to really put this team in position to win because of the defense.
Because his opponent, or whoever is playing quarterback's opponent, is a bit wounded right now in the Bengals. Yeah. And Cliff, third down, new defensive coordinator, kind of. Marvin Lewis takes over. They fire Terrell Austin. And then A.J. Green not in the lineup. How do these two things, you think, impact what Lamar sees, what this defense sees, what Joe maybe sees?
Well, I think for the Ravens' perspective, it's great to play the Bengals now. If when their defense has been in disarray, they've given the Ravens a lot of problems in the past. I think the Lamar factor, if it is him, makes it even harder for the Bengals because it's the unknown with Lamar. The Bengals can't really lock in on him the way they have been able to lock in on Joe, it seems, in the past and figure out ways to shut him down. Now, that doesn't mean Lamar is automatically going to be successful, but he's harder to prepare for. So I definitely think that the Lamar factor, if it's him, could be an advantage for the Ravens in this game. And the fact that the Bengals haven't played well defensively all season, it's hard for me to visualize that they're suddenly going to find an answer by bringing in Hugh, by Marvin taking over.
Forgot about Hugh Jackson.
Right.
Welcome back.
Right. So I think the Bengals are not a good defensive team.
And the A.J. Green thing, Garrett, has to be even bigger than any of this.
How many times have Ravens fans been screaming at their televisions because A.J. Green has come up with a big play over the past decade?
What, 3 times in the first half in week 2?
I mean, it's happened so many times. But even over the course of his career, I mean, this is a guy that's got the nickname Ravens Killer, and it's for good reason. He's earned that. So having him not on the field, I think, is an absolute difference maker for this team.
All right, guys, last and quickly here. Fourth down. Putting you on the spot, realistically, where do you see, Ryan, we'll start with you, this team at the end of the season? I guess we're talking record numbers based off of opponents here.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Ravens right now look to me to be anywhere between an 8-8 and 10-16. 10-6 would be tough. That means they can only drop one game the rest of the way, and they'd have to win 2 on the road. Most likely it's 9-7 probably is what you hope for.
And you see, Cliff, the 2 big names that stand out would be Kansas City and the Chargers.
Exactly.
Everyone else remaining are teams that, much like the Ravens, are kind of hanging around.
Yeah, I see the dreaded 9 if you're putting it to a gun to my head for the win total, which could be enough, could not be enough.
Puts you in tiebreaker town.
Right.
Yeah.
It might not be dreaded. That might not be dreaded. That's not obviously preferred, but it's much more preferred than 8-8. You know, like that could get you in. 9-7 may do it.
It could.
Well, coming up next, it's been a long week, some time for some things to boil up, and the panel here is going to get a chance to step up and give their opinion with Soapbox after this. Welcome back to the Unscripted Couch. Time for what's quickly become a fan favorite on the show. It's the Soapbox. So just because these guys don't get enough time to wax poetic, they get to step forward in front of the camera, all alone, under the lights, and 30 seconds of their opinion on something Ravens related. And
it's ranting. It's ranting.
Is it ranting?
Yeah.
And this week, because of the bye, we went kind of like the Oscars award seasons, at least through the mid portion. And I have the bell here, much like at an award show where it's time to get off the stage. So first up, we have the one and only Cliff Brown.
The floor is yours, Cliff.
And I will introduce it. This would be your mid-season Rookie of the Year. Go ahead.
Yeah, my mid-season Rookie of the Year is Ravens tight end Mark Andrews. And I'm going with him because he's been consistent as a receiver all year. And unlike most rookies who sometimes hit a wall mid-season, he seems to be getting stronger. I think he's going to be more involved in the red zone offense in the second half of the season. Even if Hayden Hurst becomes more of a factor, I still think Andrews is going to be a guy that Joe Flacco or Lamar Jackson are going to look for in the red zone. So Mark Andrews is my guy.
All right.
Well done, Cliff Brown.
I like it.
I'll let you guys have a quick rebuttal response agreement here.
How about Orlando Brown? I don't think Mark Andrews is a bad pick, but I think Orlando Brown, think about this. Where would the Ravens be if that guy didn't step up and play the way he has? I mean, who else would be playing right tackle?
Right.
Now, I agree, Andrews is a little different. I think the Ravens would be okay with Nick Boyle and Max Williams. He's made plays.
How many games have they won since Orlando Brown?
Yeah.
0. That would be 0. But that's not
They'd be worse than where they are.
They'd be exactly where they are. Thank you.
It's a fair point. It would be worse than it's been if Orlando Brown didn't step up and play pretty well. And I think by season's end, the only argument against Orlando, other than the excellent one that you just made,
the one that everyone's saying about winning and losing.
Other than that one, is that it's just been limited body of work for him. But I think if he will stay there.
You want more Ryan Mink? He's up next.
I got nothing to respond to that. Just go ahead and take the floor, man. Just keep the great points coming.
Here we go. All right, this is my second try. All right, for Offensive Player of the Year, I'm going with John Brown. I mean, you think about big plays on offense, there haven't been any in the run game. They've pretty much been all John Brown. Now, I realize he's hit a little bit of a struggle here the past 3 of the past 4 games. He's gone under 40 yards. But I think that's just because of the respect that opposing teams have given him. The Ravens need to find another answer to John Brown because he's so obviously their best offensive player so far. So, John Smokey Brown for Offensive MVP. I even ended early.
Yeah,
Look at that. That's a first.
Good. You left time on the clock.
That's a first
well
for me.
timed. Well timed.
I agree with you, Ryan. I mean, when I look at this offense, you know, he's brought something that was really desperately needed for this team, that big play element. He has gone a little bit quiet, but I think that teams are taking him away, and other players need to step up. I don't think
that shows his value as much as his production is. When he's not playing well, the offense struggles.
I think they're going to have to find a way to get the ball in his hands more, maybe on shorter passes. Just, you know, as the Steelers use Antonio Brown. Exactly. Because I don't feel, frankly, that enough guys have picked it up. When you take John Brown away, you seem to take a lot of Ravens' explosion away. And I think they may make that change after the bye. Just get the ball in the guy's hands moving, and maybe he can turn one of these short passes into a long game.
All right, Garrett, close us out here on Soapbox with the Defensive Player of the Year.
It's a tough one.
I'll go with this for Defensive Player of the Year. I'll point to the second-year cornerback, MARLON Humphrey. This is a former first-round pick who we all kind of wondered, would he be able to take that next step in his development and be a consistent starter? Well, I think that he's done that. He, to me, not only is probably the defensive MVP, but he might be the best player, if you're looking at it, on this team. I mean, really consider it. Look what happened when he was injured with a thigh injury against the Saints and against the Panthers. The defense completely changed. This guy is a shutdown corner, and I think the best defensive player, maybe player overall, on this team.
Wow.
Best
player overall.
Big
I mean,
statements.
if you're pointing to somebody else, like what other player, position player, take Tucker out of the equation, would you say is the best player on this team? Okay, maybe Marshall Yanda, you know.
C.J. Mosley will be
in the conversation. Sure. But I think Marlon has put himself right in that conversation.
I think here's the thing on defense is collectively the unit has played very well overall. You know, they're near the top of the rankings, but they haven't made a lot of plays. You know, Eric Weddle has done a good job, but he has 0 interceptions. C.J. Mosley has been really good, but he doesn't have any interceptions either. I'm not sure how many sacks he has. 0, 1, not much. So they've had a lack of playmaking. Marlon hasn't made a ton of plays either, but I would say that opponents haven't hardly targeted him. They haven't gone after him much, which shows.
A big game that I circle for him was that game against the Steelers earlier in the season. He really limited Antonio Brown that game. And I also look at it from the standpoint, like I mentioned, when he has not been in the lineup, what's happened to the defense? It hasn't been pretty.
All right, guys, we usually save this for the end of the show, or at least back in the day. But something you think you'll see in this Bengals game coming up. We have about a minute. So just something quickly you think you expect to see in this game on Sunday at home.
I think that the Ravens are going to get their tight ends involved more. We already talked about Mark Andrews. I think Hayden Hurst as well. I think the Bengals are going to key in on John Brown. The Ravens need to expose that middle of the field against this Bengals defense, which is really hurting right now. So I think they're going to really get those tight ends going.
I think they're going to look for the running game. We've been saying that all year, but I assume after the bye, and we're at least going to see more of Lamar if he doesn't start, that the Ravens are going to really try and get the running game going. I think that if they do, that'll be maybe this will be the jumping point off for that going into the last 7 games.
I totally agree with that point. Regardless of how much more we see of Lamar, we are going to see more. And I think that is going to help the run game overall.
And coming up next, you're going to see more of our opinion on fashion and the running game. Stay with us here on Unscripted. Welcome back to the show. Time for Love It or Hate It. I'll present some Ravens-related statements. Pretty simple. The guys will tell me if they love it or hate it. First up, we've discussed the running game a bunch this show. Ty Montgomery, signed before the bye week, did not play in that Steelers game. Love or hate the idea that he should get some reps here in the back half of this season? We'll start with you, Garrett.
I love it. I mean, I don't think that you're going to give him 50 snaps on offense, but I think if you maybe work him in, I think he should cut into both the snap count for Alex Collins and Buck Allen. He really gives you a little bit more in the receiving game than Alex Collins. I think he's maybe a little bit better than Buck in that regard. So, yeah, I give him a fraction. How much? I don't know, maybe 15 snaps a game. So I don't think he's going to be like a transcendent difference maker, but I think he can maybe give you some pop in some third and passing situations.
I think that he could make a little bit of a difference in the red zone because he is a bit of a matchup problem. He's a running back / wide receiver. You can really kind of option him out, put him in the slot role. So I think he can help the red zone offense, which needs help. But how about this for a ripple effect? What if he took over kick return duties, which frees up Chris Moore to do a little bit, which takes a little bit off of Michael Crabtree's plate? Chris Moore made that nice 30-yard catch against the Steelers. I think he could be a guy that could see more along with Ty Montgomery.
Yeah, I've been an advocate to get more on the field, more for more touches. So I like that idea. And Ty is a guy I've seen make plays with the Packers when you get him in space. So that's an element the Ravens haven't had a lot of, guys who can make people miss. I think he has that quality. They should try and use it.
All right, most important question of the show thus far. Love or hate the black-on-black uniforms that the Ravens will wear on Sunday against the Bengals, Cliff?
I'm
a man of style.
Yeah, I guess. I appreciate that. But no, the black on black, no, I don't.
Really?
No, I don't.
Oh, I love it.
No.
Wow, that's the most controversial take we've had on the show today.
We need to sink into this.
No, only because I kind of like the purple. I've become a fan of the white and purple look that they have. That's the new look I like the best.
Wait, white tops, purple legs?
Yes.
Okay.
But I
like that too.
I will say this. Any uniform that starts a winning streak, I'm down.
Yeah, I was going to say, if these guys knew the records by the uniforms, then we might have to get them a hobby away from this organization. Last one here. Back-to-back home games all season. I mean, this seems pretty obvious to me, Ryan. I'd love to hear it.
Like it? Yeah. I mean,
not just the commute.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's great. The Ravens need these home fans to get jacked up. I understand it's tough after a 3-game losing streak, but there's still plenty of time to turn it around. The Ravens have to win out at home, I think, to make the playoffs. And it starts this week in a pivotal game against the Bengals.
These 2 games against the Bengals and then followed up by the Raiders, this is a chance to turn the season around in a hurry. I mean, I know everybody's kind of down right now, lost 4 out of 5 and 3 straight and all that, and you've had all this time to think about it. But you honestly can get right back into the thick of things by beating the Bengals, and then you have another game that is clearly one that you should win against the Raiders. So I think things could turn in a hurry, and having these at home is huge for Baltimore. Yeah, and it's right in front of you, and you get a chance to witness it in person. Another thing that's coming up, Pro Bowl voting. So make sure to head to NFL.com/Pro Bowl to vote in your favorite Raven for the Pro Bowl this year. Well, guys, that'll do it for this episode of Ravens Unscripted. Good to be back on the couch and having a game to preview. Once again, we'll be back here next week to recap what happened against the Bengals and get set for the Raiders. Enjoy the game, everybody.